Close your eyes for a moment and listen, not to me, but to the silence behind my words. The mind you carry has been trained to divide. This is sacred, that is ordinary, this is God, that is the world. And because of this training, you search for God in temples, scriptures, skies far away, while missing Him in your own breath. The tragedy is not that God is hidden. The tragedy is that your mind is noisy. This talk is an invitation to a different kind of training, not the training that sharpens ambition, fear, or competition, but a gentle re-education of awareness. When the mind becomes still, even for a moment, everything starts to glow with meaning. A tree is no longer just a tree. A stranger is no longer just a stranger, and life is no longer accidental. To train the mind is not to control it, but to watch it. Because the moment you truly see, God is already there, looking back at you through everything. You have been taught from the very beginning that you are the doer, the planner, the controller of your life. This idea has been fed to you so deeply that it has become your very identity. You say, I am doing this, I must achieve that, I must reach somewhere, and because of this constant obsession with control, you live in tension. Look closely. The trees do not plan to grow, the rivers do not plan their path, the stars do not plan their movement, yet everything reaches its right place at the right moment. Only the human mind suffers because it wants to manage existence instead of trusting it. The belief that you must force life to happen is the root of anxiety. Existence is not chaotic. It only appears chaotic to a mind that wants guarantees. Life has its own intelligence, far greater than your thinking mind. Before you were born, your heart was already beating. Before you learned to speak, breathing was happening perfectly. You did not plan your eyes, your hands, your consciousness. Something immense was already taking care of you. And suddenly one day you started believing that everything depends on you. This is the fall from grace. Not sin, but mistrust. The moment you distrust existence, fear is born. And when fear is born, you start asking, what is God's plan for me? As if God is separate, as if the plan is written somewhere else. The plan is not a fixed script. It is a living movement. God does not work like a dictator writing your destiny on stone. The plan is fluid, alive, responsive. It changes with your awareness. When you are unconscious, the plan functions as fate. When you are conscious, the same plan becomes freedom. What you call destiny is simply existence pushing you toward growth, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. If you cooperate, it feels like grace. If you resist, it feels like suffering. The plan never disappears, only your interpretation changes. You want life to follow your desires, but existence is interested in your awakening, not your comfort. Comfort keeps you asleep. Challenges shake you. Losses break your false attachments. Failures destroy your ego. And you call these things misfortune, punishment, bad luck. You say, why me? Not knowing that these are the exact situations needed to crack your armor. If everything went according to your wishes, you would remain shallow. Depth is born through friction. Awareness is born through pain that is understood, not avoided. You think the plan should always make sense to your mind, but the mind is very small. It knows only the past. Existence knows the whole. A child cannot understand why a bitter medicine is given, but the mother knows. In the same way, many things happening in your life are bitter to the taste of the ego, but nourishing to the soul. The mind asks for explanations. Existence offers transformation. When you demand reasons, you miss the lesson. When you accept without complaint, understanding arises on its own. God's plan is not about making you successful in the eyes of society. It is not about wealth, status, or recognition. These are toys given to keep the ego busy. The real plan is to bring you to a point where you can see without fear, love without possession, live without clinging. Every situation you encounter is perfectly designed to show you something about yourself. The people who hurt you are not enemies, they are mirrors. The people who leave you are not punishments, they are lessons in non-attachment. The delays you face are not denials, they are preparations. You suffer because you are always in a hurry. Existence is never in a hurry. Seeds take time to become trees. Consciousness takes time to mature. You want answers now, results now, clarity now. And when it does not happen, you conclude that something has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong. You are simply early. Trust requires patience, and patience is possible only when you are no longer obsessed with control. When you fight life, you exhaust yourself. When you flow with it, energy multiplies. Surrender does not mean passivity, it means deep listening. It means responding, not reacting. The surrendered person still acts, but his action is aligned with the whole. He does not swim against the river, he allows the river to carry him, and then his effort becomes effortless. This is the paradox. When you drop control, you gain a deeper power, not the power of domination, but the power of harmony. The plan is always happening in the present moment. You miss it because you are either stuck in the past or dreaming of the future. The past is dead, the future is imaginary. Only this moment is alive. And in this moment, existence is constantly guiding you through intuition, through feelings, through subtle signs. But your mind is too noisy to listen. You are busy calculating profits and losses, judging what should be and should not be. Silence is the doorway. When the mind becomes quiet, guidance becomes obvious. Then you don't ask whether God has a plan. You see it unfolding everywhere. The ego wants credit. It wants to say, I did this. The ego is blind to grace. Grace happens only when the ego steps aside. Look back at your life honestly. The most beautiful moments were unplanned. Love happened when you were not searching. Joy happened when you were not demanding. Peace came when you stopped trying to be peaceful. This shows you something fundamental. The best things in life are gifts, not achievements. Existence is not against you. That very idea is absurd. You are made of existence. Fighting it is like fighting your own breath. The moment you relax into trust, a subtle shift happens. Life feels less like a burden and more like a mystery to be lived. Questions slowly dissolve. The need to know disappears. And in that not knowing, a deep confidence arises. Not confidence in yourself, but confidence in the whole. This confidence is what religious people have called faith, but it has nothing to do with belief. It is an experience. God's plan is not somewhere in the future waiting for you to arrive. It is here now, in this very experience of listening, breathing, being. When you are totally present, you are already aligned. Nothing else is needed. The plan is not to become someone else. It is to become so aware that you disappear and only life remains moving through you, singing through you, loving through you. Belief is borrowed. Trust is lived. Belief belongs to the mind. Trust belongs to your total being. You have been taught to believe in many things. Beliefs about God, about morality, about success, about what is right and what is wrong. But belief never transforms anyone. Belief is cheap. It costs nothing. You can believe while remaining exactly the same inside. Trust is dangerous because it demands that you drop your defenses. Trust means you are ready to move into the unknown without maps, without guarantees, without conditions. The mind always wants proof before it trusts. But life does not function that way. If you wait for proof, you will miss life. Love has no proof. Beauty has no proof. Truth has no proof. You trust first, and only then do these things reveal themselves. The mind says, first show me, then I will trust. Existence says, trust first and then see. This is the fundamental difference between a fearful life and a religious life. Religion is not about belief systems. It is about courage. The courage to trust something greater than your logic. When you say God has a plan for you, and you say it as a belief, it remains empty. You repeat it when things are going well, and you forget it when things fall apart. But when trust arises, even chaos feels meaningful. Even confusion has a hidden order. Trust does not mean you understand what is happening. It means you are at ease with not understanding. The mind is always restless. because it wants clarity. Trust is relaxed because it clears. Clarity is not needed to live fully. Trust is not blind. Blindness belongs to belief. Trust is very aware. It sees the uncertainty of life clearly and still says yes. It knows that tomorrow is unknown and still takes the step. It knows that relationships can break, that success can turn into failure, that health can disappear. And still it loves, works, lives totally. This is not foolishness, this is intelligence beyond calculation. The calculating mind is always protecting itself, and in that protection it misses intensity, depth, aliveness. Your suffering deepens because you trust only yourself, and even that trust is shaky. You don't really trust yourself either. That is why you seek approval, security, guarantees. The ego pretends to be strong, but inside it is trembling. Trust is the moment when you stop leaning on the ego and allow existence to support you. And existence has always been supporting you, only your resistance has made you blind to it. Trust is not something you do. It is something that happens when you see the futility of control. When you have tried again and again to manage life and failed. When your plans have collapsed repeatedly. When your expectations have betrayed you, then a crack appears. If you are intelligent, that crack becomes an opening. You start seeing that perhaps life cannot be dominated. Perhaps it can only be danced with. In that realization, trust is born. The mind lives in comparison. It looks at others and says, they have more, I have less, they are ahead, I am behind. Trust lives in uniqueness. It knows that existence never repeats itself. No one else can live your life, and you cannot live anyone else's life. The plan is not general, it is intimate. It is tailored to your consciousness. When you compare, you fall out of trust. When you accept your uniqueness, trust deepens naturally. Trust does not remove pain, it removes bitterness. Pain will still come, but it will not poison you. Loss will still happen, but it will not make you cynical. Failure will still visit, but it will not destroy your dignity. Trust allows you to remain open even when life hurts. Without trust, every pain becomes a wound. With trust, pain becomes a teacher. You ask for signs, miracles, assurances, but the greatest assurance is your own experience. Look at the countless times when life saved you without your knowing, guided you without your planning, brought you to places you never imagined. The mind calls these coincidences. Trust sees them as the language of existence. Life whispers constantly, but only a trusting heart can hear. Trust is not passive waiting, it is active openness. You do what you can, fully, sincerely, and then you let go of the outcome. The moment you cling to results, anxiety enters. The moment you release results, grace enters. This is the secret rhythm. Effort without tension, action without attachment. This balance cannot be taught as a rule. It is learned through awareness. When trust deepens, prayer changes. It is no longer a demand. It becomes gratitude. You stop asking for things and start thanking for whatever is given. Even silence becomes a blessing. Even uncertainty becomes beautiful. You feel carried, not because life promises safety, but because you no longer demand it. The moment you trust, the idea of God's plan is no longer a consolation for the weak. It becomes a lived reality. You walk, not knowing where the path, L, leads, yet every step feels right. You fall, yet even falling feels part of the dance. Nothing is wasted, nothing is accidental. And this knowing does not come as a thought, it comes as a quiet strength inside you that does not argue, does not explain, does not convince, but simply is. Suffering is not created by life, it is created by your resistance to life. Life brings situations, neutral in themselves. You bring interpretation, judgment, expectation, and then suffering is born. Two people pass through the same experience. One grows, the other breaks. The difference is not in the event but in the inner posture. Resistance is the refusal to accept what is. And the moment you say no to reality, pain turns into suffering. Pain is natural, suffering is psychological. You want life to fit your ideas, your timing, your desires. Existence has no obligation to obey your mind. When it moves in a direction different from your expectation, you call it suffering. But look deeply, suffering is simply the friction between reality and your demand. If the demand disappears, friction disappears, the event remains, but the inner turmoil vanishes. This is why wise people appear calm even in difficult situations. They are not free from pain, they are free from resistance. The mind is trained to fight. From childhood, you are taught to struggle, to conquer, to overcome. This training is useful in the outer world, but disastrous in the inner world. Inside, struggle creates division. You start fighting yourself. You fight fear, you fight sadness, you fight uncertainty. And whatever you fight becomes stronger. Suppressed emotions do not disappear, they accumulate in the unconscious and become heaviness, anxiety, exhaustion. Acceptance is not weakness, it is intelligence. When sadness comes, you immediately want it to go away. You distract yourself, entertain yourself, drug yourself, pray against it. You never allow it to be fully there. Because of this, sadness lingers. If you could sit with it without judgment, without naming it a problem, it would pass like a cloud. Emotions are visitors. Resistance makes them permanent residents. Allowing makes them move. Suffering also comes from the idea that life should be fair according to your logic. You see good people suffering and bad people enjoying, and your mind rebels. You ask, why? This question itself is resistance. Existence does not follow your moral arithmetic. It follows a deeper balance that the mind cannot calculate. When you drop the demand for fairness, a strange peace arises. You stop arguing with the whole. Ego is the center of suffering. The ego says, this should not have happened to me. It compares, complains, and feels personally attacked by life. The ego wants special treatment. When life treats you like everyone else unpredictably, the ego feels humiliated. Acceptance dissolves the ego. The moment you see that nothing is personal, suffering loses its grip. Suffering persists because you keep reliving it mentally. The event may have passed, but the mind repeats it again and again. You rehearse conversations, imagine different outcomes, punish yourself or others. This inner repetition is resistance to the fact that the past cannot be changed. Acceptance brings you back to the present. In the present, suffering has no fuel. It feeds only on memory and imagination. You think acceptance means liking what happens. It does not. Acceptance simply means seeing clearly that it has happened. From this clarity, response becomes possible. From resistance, only reaction comes. Reaction is blind, response is aware. When you resist, you waste energy fighting reality. When you accept, the same energy becomes available for transformation. Many people cling to suffering because it gives them identity. They become someone who was betrayed, someone who failed, someone who was hurt. The story becomes familiar, comfortable in a strange way. Dropping suffering feels like dropping oneself. Acceptance is frightening because it is a small death of the old identity. But only through this death does freedom arise. Life is constantly changing, but your mind wants permanence. You want love to remain the same, success to remain the same, youth to remain the same. When change happens, you resist and suffering enters. If you see change as the very nature of existence, then loss is no longer shocking. Everything that comes will go. Holding this understanding, you enjoy without clinging. Suffering also deepens when you believe it has no meaning. The moment you see that every difficulty is shaping your awareness, bitterness melts. Meaning is not given from outside, it is discovered through insight. The same fire that burns ignorance also burns resistance. When you stop asking life to be easy and start allowing it to be real, suffering transforms into clarity. Resistance is noisy. Acceptance is silent. In that silence, something within you relaxes. The body softens, the breath deepens, the mind slows down. This relaxation is not resignation, it is alignment. You are no longer standing against the river, you are floating. The river still has rocks, turns, and depths, but you are no longer exhausted by fighting its flow. The paradox is that when you fully accept suffering, it loses its power over you. It no longer defines you. It becomes an experience passing through awareness, not a wound carried as an identity. In that acceptance, there is no complaint, no justification, no conclusion, only a deep seeing of what is happening, now awakening. Does not happen by improving yourself. It happens by understanding yourself. Improvement is an ego project. Awakening is the falling away of the ego. You have been taught to become better, stronger, wiser, more spiritual, more disciplined. And in this effort to become, you miss being. Awakening begins the moment you see the futility of becoming anything other than what you are in this moment. Acceptance is the key, not as an idea, but as a lived experience. Total acceptance means you stop dividing life into higher and lower, sacred and profane, right and wrong as inner conflicts. Things can still be right or wrong on the practical level, but inwardly you are no longer at war. You allow everything to be seen. Anger is seen, fear is seen, desire is seen, even confusion is seen. And in this seeing, a great miracle happens. What is seen with total awareness begins to dissolve on its own. Not because you reject it, but because you understood it. You have been trying to change your thoughts, but thoughts are symptoms, not the disease. The real issue is your resistance to whatever arises in consciousness. When you accept even your darkness without condemnation, it loses its grip. Light does not fight darkness, it simply appears. Awareness is light. Acceptance is the doorway through which awareness enters. Awakening is not an achievement in time. It is not tomorrow, not after practice, not after purification. It is always now. The idea that you are not yet ready is itself part of sleep. Existence never postpones awakening, only the mind does. The mind says, first I must be worthy, first I must understand, first I must change. Acceptance says, let me see what is here now. And in that seeing, transformation happens without effort. When you accept totally, even your mistakes become meaningful. Guilt disappears, not because you justify your actions, but because you see them clearly. You understand how unconsciousness operates. Compassion arises, not only for others, but for yourself. This compassion is not sentimental. It is rooted in clarity. You stop torturing yourself for being human. Awakening is deeply ordinary. It is not fireworks, visions, or special states. Those are distractions. Awakening is the ability to eat when hungry, sleep when tired, love when love arises, and be alone when aloneness comes, without inner conflict. It is a state of inner agreement with life. Nothing is rejected, nothing is clung to. The mind fears acceptance because it thinks acceptance will make you stagnant. The opposite is true. Resistance creates stagnation. Acceptance allows movement. When you stop fighting what is, energy flows freely. Then action arises spontaneously, not from ambition, but from clarity. You do what needs to be done without inner noise. Awakening also means the disappearance of the question, why me? This question belongs to the ego. When acceptance deepens, you see that life is not happening to you, it is happening through you. You are not separate from the whole. You are an expression of it. This understanding is not philosophical, it is existential. It is felt in the body, in the breath, in the way you walk and speak. Total acceptance includes death. That is why it is frightening. The ego survives by clinging. Acceptance is a continuous letting go. Each moment dies into the next. When you accept this constant dying, fear loses its foundation. You become light, fluid, responsive. You no longer carry yesterday into today as a burden. Awakening is not withdrawal from the world. It is intimacy with it. You touch life directly with awe. Mental filters. Colors become brighter. Silence becomes richer. Ordinary moments carry depth. You are no longer searching for meaning. Meaning is everywhere because you are present. The ultimate acceptance is accepting that there is nothing to accept, no goal to reach, no final state to attain. Even the idea of awakening is dropped. What remains is pure awareness, choiceless, effortless, watching life unfold moment by moment without interference, without interpretation, without conclusion.